What do you mean by the global harmonization of metrics? And from the green grid's point of view, what is this?
Sure. 4 years ago, when the green grid first started, if you were to go into a room of crowded people and ask, how do you define a data center energy efficiency metric, you would have probably gotten back as many different answers as there were people in the room. And if you have that kind of level of confusion in a marketplace, you really can't make much progress. So the green grid gathered together its membership and put together a series of metrics that it felt could be able to be used to scientifically identify ways to make improvements in energy efficiency. That first metric was called PUE. As PUE was launched and used globally, we found that folks were very innocently misinterpreting how to use the metric and perhaps weren't applying it consistently. So the green grid moved forward then with a series of updates to PUE that would make it very clear as to what to measure, how frequently to measure, the duration of measurement, so that everybody was all dealing with this baseline metric consistently. The green grid, working then with a series of organizations in the United States, came together and refined PUE a bit further, and then reached out to the European Union, reached out to the British government, Japanese government, and said, let's add another level of consistency to the use of the metric, so as on a global basis we can all have that same consistent approach. This effort kicked off just over a year ago. This Tiger team meets every 2 weeks on global calls, and they get together regularly to refine and work out any of the granular details that still exist around the use of at least PUE as a metric. That's been very successful. Last summer there was an announcement that came out from this task force that identified that level of granularity that these governments around the world were now going to support, and it's worked out very well. But that's not all there is to it. You can't stop with PUE. PUE only is a metric that identifies the IT infrastructure, the energy used to then power and cool the IT equipment. There are a series of other metrics that are necessary to really tell a more comprehensive story. One of those is DCP. Under DCP, which is a productivity metric, the green grid's introduced a series of proxies that can then start to get folks to a better understanding of how productive their IT equipment is with the unit of energy that had been quantified through PUE. So PUE harmonization is a great place to start. If you have global agreement as to how to use that baseline metric, it creates that baseline for then how can you have other improvements in areas such as productivity. There's another metric introduced by the green grid recently is ERE, which is a metric to quantify a way to quantify reuse of waste heat, and others. So PUE is a great start. We're looking into many others to then further tell the story.